August 11th, 2017. Uh, a little bit of understanding I've collected over this time of developing theory and looking at how scientists do things. And I've realized that there's two ways to solve mysteries in a big sense. I'll go ahead and read both ways. The first one is finding no knowledge to be false. That's very powerful. And the other way is collecting more information. So, if you want to solve a mystery, you collect more and more information. And they go hand in hand. They're not completely separated, but the big pieces are there. With collecting more information, the mentality is that you build bigger and bigger experiments. So, like the LHC, they build it bigger and bigger and bigger. You know, and that's the big science. That's the big money, big donations, big prize money, big grants, and it involves lots of people. So thousands of people will be working on it, regardless of the validity of the models or the theories. And there will be hundreds of journal papers written about these ideas. So thousands of people, hundreds of journal entries, entire volumes of journals completely obsessed with the ideas that they're publishing. And they all work inside of a paradigm, so they all have the same mentality. Which is funny because they also have the same mysteries. Which, that will lead to the other side of this. Their egos are never hurt. They always believe that they're right and nothing's wrong. And their emotional state is set in stone. There's nothing to challenge their emotional state. So their egos are never hurt. There's nothing that throws off their ego. And a very interesting one I wanted to also write down is the dollar to progress ratio is very low. Which means for every dollar spent on these big science experiments, that much less is information gathered that actually benefits the actual field. For instance, you could have these superconducting magnets at the LHC, and for every $10,000 spent on repairing one of these things, the science benefits are essentially zero. There's nothing, you can just throw billions and billions of dollars at it, but it won't lead to any new information. And the other side of the spectrum here is finding no knowledge to be false. And I have written, experiments and demonstrations sometimes are not required. It comes packaged in a realization. It's a fleeting moment. That's what I experienced. It was like, bam, it hits you, and then, oh. And then you try to tell somebody about it, and they say, well, you don't have the experiments or the demonstrations to show us that this is valid. I'm like, it's not an experiment. It's not a demonstration. It's a realization. It's something that's fleeting. It's in your mind. It's oh shit, all this is wrong. And this is the assumption they took to be true, which is false. And then it all will come crashing down after that. It's not big science. It's the leading tip of big science, which means it's actually very small science. It's very tiny. Very, 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 very small. If anything, I could relate to nature would be like the leading edge of a knife. That's it. It's a very small area. And sometimes it involves no grants or prize money. Obviously, I haven't received a dime from anybody for anything. So, it's usually one person at a time, which are separated by time and distance, and they're usually mutually exclusive, which means Anthony Abruzzo thought of this idea too. Alexander Oparin did too, but Oparin was alive in like the 1920s, 1910s, and in Soviet Russia, there's no freaking way I would have been able to understand that he came up with this idea because separated by time and distance. And Anthony Abruzzo thought of it too. I don't know what year exactly. All I know is one of his earliest papers that I've written or seen is written in I think 2008 or 2009. But I didn't even know he existed either. So that's what usually happens with major discoveries, is that they're separated by time and distance, and the people who make the discoveries are completely oblivious of each other. So I guess it's like a double blind kind of thing where nobody knows who they are, but they come out of the woodwork eventually. And sharing the idea doesn't need hundreds of journal entries. It's usually with one small paper. They can put the discovery down in a sentence. That's it. Stellar evolution is planet formation. It's very, 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 very short and straightforward. It doesn't require huge amounts of data and equations and interpretations and dozens of authors. You can even have some words misspelled in it. It still gets the idea across. So it's a very, very, very small thing. It's outside of the paradigm by default. So it's another big difference between collecting more information paradigm. It's like, well, clearly if the discovery questions something about the accepted paradigm, then it's going to be outside the paradigm by default. So that's a given. Your ego is hurt if you hold on to ideas that are wrong and they're actually, wrong. Well, your ego is going to suffer from it. So with scientists that are doing big science, they're in preservation of their ego a lot of the time, and cognitive dissonance will prevent their ego from being threatened. And naturally, when you hold a lot of ideas to be true, you want to protect your ego, and that's exactly what they do. So in order to find false knowledge, you have to let your ego get a little hurt. And scientists these days, they don't want to let that happen, because it makes you feel uncomfortable. It's not a good place to be. And finally, the dollar to progress ratio is very high. The amount of information, amount of principles that I've discovered based off this theory are going into the hundreds pretty soon. And literally, the most money I've spent is on my cell phone bill for uploading these damn YouTube videos. Like, holy shit. How many dollars per amount of progress have I been making versus something like the LHC where, they blow $100,000 on replacing a superconducting magnet and nothing really comes of it. Can you imagine what kind of work I'd get done if I was given $100,000? I could work full time on this and produce fucking thousands of papers and explain it to the best of my ability. I could even hire guys to do statistical analysis for it. I could work it out into a book. I could get editors to edit all my work for me. Like, I could pay them. I could get so much fucking done with $100,000 versus LHC where, a magnet broke. Whoop-de-fucking-do. Here's fucking $100,000 to replace that fucking magnet. Like, Jesus Christ. But anyways, check it out. Magic marker style. Anyways, y'all, I think that's enough. Take it easy.